Hey, Yetta, do you want to play Monopoly?
It takes too long.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.
We're excited to welcome you to another episode of Life's Inside Track. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And we get to share techniques, thoughts, tips, and tools that we all need. We all deserve. You, I, everyone. So we can turn our house into home, our families thrive, and we live the best life possible. We're going to consider that investing in real estate is a little bit like playing a game of Monopoly.
Yes, we are.
Exactly.
And the great news is you got your entire life to play the game.
It's not just an evening.
All the pieces go back in the box, though, when you die.
They true. But okay, that's not where we're going right now, though.
No.
We're going to consider the different types of investment properties, right? That's what we're going to start with. And then we'll continue to develop that thought. Because in Monopoly, you win. There's only one way to win.
Yeah.
That's by owning property.
Yeah. You own property.
And
so then you collect rent.
Exactly. And so if you already own your own personal residence, that's fantastic. And that's really the beginning of being able to have an investment mindset, like how to care for it, how to navigate the payments, all of that. And then we're talking about that second property.
Right.
And so do you do passive investing?
You could.
You could. So do you want to unpack that first or go through the types
Let's go
first?
through the three types.
Okay. So there's passive, and then there's short-term rentals, and then there's a longer-term rental.
Yeah. And the reason we don't talk about flipping, because some people go, well, that's short-term real estate owning. Flipping's about earning an income,
Right.
not about building wealth.
Right.
And the tactics we're talking about are for building wealth, long-term wealth.
And so flipping can work well. And it is a completely different conversation than keeping real estate and owning it for the long haul. So it's a tactic for a different show. We have done some episodes on flipping. So if that interests you, you can go find those episodes. And we'll probably do some in the future too. Because there's a lot of sensationalizing around flipping. And if you can do it well, you can do well.
Yeah. The problem is flipping houses, they're heavy. And last time I tried to do one, I hurt my back. You know this joke.
Yes.
But the point is, each house that we've attempted to flip, we've broken even or lost a little bit of money.
Right.
So, and a lot of labor
we're not your
went
best, obviously, to tell you which one. But if you have a strategy, we know lots of people, and we have a few clients that do it very successfully.
Yeah. And we know what not to do.
Right.
Because we bought our house to help somebody out.
Right.
And then we thought, well, we can adjust it and flip it. We didn't buy it for the purpose of flipping. And so that's
so back to always having your purpose clear, your motivation in line. So the very first one that we talked about, that's passive.
So passive, we're going to unpack that a little more in a little later on in the show. But passive just means you don't have an active role in it other than supplying money.
Right.
You don't have control of the property. You don't have as much work or energy you have to put into it. And it has its place.
Right. And you're going to gain probably about 50% on average. That's at least the clients we have that help people invest passively. The person coming will bring 100% of the down payment typically, be financially responsible, but not responsible to bring the knowledge or the process.
Yep.
And so there's a sharing of profits.
Yeah. And so in this segment, what we'd like to talk about is the short-term versus long-term
rentals.
And again, it's not short-term owning it. They're all long-term owning it. It's just, does the tenant or the person staying in it come for a short time or a long time? And they're governed differently because one's under the Hoteling Act, where you're like, you're probably familiar with Airbnb or vacation rentals by owner, or even Expedia. You can get that type of rental from people, where people come and they stay for a few days to a few weeks to maybe a month or two.
Right. And then there's the longer term rental, which typically will be a year or longer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sometimes people will consider a long term rental 6 months, but really it's a year or longer that we would say is long term renting.
Right. And then you're governed by the Landlord Tenant Act if you're into a long term as opposed to the Hotel Act. And that can be a pro and a con.
Right.
But it typically it's a con for a lot of people because it prevents them from removing a tenant easily. And it prevents them from raising the rent quickly if the market shifts. You can't just raise someone's rent by $200-$300 a month. But in the Airbnb, if the market demands it and people are willing to pay it, you can raise the per night rate to whatever you want as long as people are willing to pay it.
Right. So the pro for the short-term rental is that you get a lot more money per night, generally speaking.
Yep.
You're going to earn a lot more in a very short period of time.
Right.
The downside is maybe you're going to have a lot of vacancies. So it may not turn out that you actually earn any more money. So when you're considering a property for a short-term rental, if that's your purpose, you want to really think about, is it in the right location to really allow for you to get a lot of occupancy in a short-term rental? There's also a lot of legislation in terms of, will your city allow it? Will the type of property you own, like a lot of condominium properties, you can't do short-term rentals.
Yeah. So you gotta, when you're looking for that property, that's some of the research you want your realtor to do for you, and you want to verify it, is to make sure that short-term rentals are allowed on that property in the zoning, or, in the city of Ottawa, they require a licensing if you want to do short-term rentals.
Right. And are you willing to do what it takes to get that licensing if you want to do a short-term rental? So
and they don't even want you to have it needs to be your principal residence that you're doing a short-term rental on, not you're buying a property specifically to do short-term rentals on that property.
Right. So when you're buying the property, you really want to have in mind, what is the purpose of this rental situation?
Another con of the short-term rentals is insurance is tougher to get and might be significantly more expensive than a rental insurance for a long-term tenant.
Right. And what would you say some of the pros are for the short-term rental?
Well, again, it's that higher rate. There's more to do. Like, it's another negative, really, is you need to have good reviews. So you got to look after that. You've got to have somebody that cleans it and maintains it regularly. So there's a lot more hands-on. And then there's wear and tear on your furniture because you have to have it, furnished and full of dishes and sheets and towels and all of that, right?
Right.
It's a whole nother...
It's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
And so if you want to do it, we've done it, but we've done it, it's a place that we also want to go, and it's out of country.
And that's a pro, because if you're doing short-term rental, most of the time it's because it's a type of property that you want to stay in yourself from time to time.
Right. And so that would be an advantage. So if you're thinking, I have now opened my mind to a concept or a possibility I hadn't thought of before. You two always talk about the long-term rentals, but here we are looking at a different option. Then just reach out to us for a clarity call, and we'll help you discover what is the next best step for you.
So unlike the game of Monopoly, where only one person wins and everybody else loses, everyone can win in this game of investing. We're grateful to be your partners and moving forward towards wisdom, wealth, and worth.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward.